starting. Let's see. This
begin
is.
To commence to start. Almost.
Let me put display up here. This is December 29, 2000 at 7:21. That's not quite right. It's 8 o'clock.
Like 7:58.
Yeah.
The evening.
In the evening. PM. That is right. Okay.
In Macon, Georgia.
And we are in Macon, Georgia. And we are here to interview
Two celebrities.
Mr. and Mrs. Charles James, or should I say Hilda Colleen Malden Meisenheimer.
Well, I was going to introduce myself.
Well, she's going to introduce herself, so we will let her start. And she will.
Erase all that and start over.
Well, no, we will just. This is informal. This is your life, Hilda. And you will start as soon as I drop the TV. There. Okay. Now there will be no distractions. So let's see, Hilda.
Well, I was born.
That you were.
November 2nd, 1925.
1925.
A great year.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Had to have been.
Made it 3 years the rest of the time to tell when you were 5 years old or 10, 50 or whatever. Even 75 years older. Right. Back then, you had babies in the home. So I don't know whether I was born, I was not born in the hospital, but I don't know what house, hello, what house I was born in. But this was in Kannapolis, North Carolina, the home of Cannon Mills, makers of textiles, towels, sheets, pillowcases, bath mats, lid covers, all that charity stuff.
Okay.
Once you get a 6.
Okay. Well, I'm zooming in.
You want to start over?
Okay.
No, you're doing great. Keep
no,
going.
you keep going.
Okay. At the ripe old age, well, I was the 7th child of 8 children.
Name them.
All of this information can be found in the Malden. In the Malden, what do you call it?
Family history book.
Right. Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay.
And Lane should have that book.
I have it.
And in fact, she's really supposed to have one for each child.
I have two.
Which means she needs one more because each child would get one of those, and then when they died, then the third book would go to the third child. Right? Because we want them to perpetuate the Malden name too, and go to all the reunions and all that kind of stuff. Okay. When I was...
That was an advertisement.
That was a commercial.
The sibling next to me was my brother, C.L., Charles Luther Malden. And he's 2 years older than I am. And when he started school, I would always run into him, always wanted to go to school. So when I was 5, you had to be 6 years old by November the 1st. My birthday being November the 2nd. My mom said, can't you go ahead and start? So they let me. So
Where did you go to school?
I went to school when I was 5 years old to McKeever Elementary School.
In Kannapolis.
In Kannapolis. Lived my whole life in Kannapolis. Till I got married and we started roaming around. Then, what else do you want to know? Well, that's about it. I grew up.
What did you...
No, one day I came home from school. My dad met me on the front porch. And he took me by the hand, and he took me into one of the bedrooms. And my mom threw back the covers, and there was this little thing, about so big. My little sister Betty.
Really?
And she was 6 years, a little more than 6 years younger than I.
Really?
But when I was 12 years old, and she was 6 years old, one of our neighbors said, Hilda, you're twice as old as she is, but you will never be twice as old as she is again. And that's true. I've noticed all of these years.
Well, that's true. She was 6 and she was 12.
What did your dad do?
My dad, my mom and my dad grew up in, I'm going to say Rockingham County, North Carolina. A relatively poor area. They never finished school, never got beyond the 5th grade, I don't think. and my mom started work when she was 12 years old. But when they got married at like about 16, 17, and had one or two boys, I think they already had them before Mr. Cannon was going to open this mill, and he wanted people to come and work for him. And he provided housing. And so they went. And my daddy just blossomed, and I don't know how long it took him, but he made superintendent of wrapping, packing, shipping, and in Cannon Mills that was very, very good. We lived right across the street from the Trinity Methodist Church, where I went to church and where I was baptized. And he became the secretary. He was the secretary of the church. He was the treasurer. He did all these things, had beautiful handwriting, and just kind of brought himself up by his own bootstraps, which made us very proud. And this is not about his life, but you can read it in the Malden. Has pictures and everything.
Where were you born, Charlie?
I was born in Kannapolis, North Carolina,
In a hospital or in a house?
in a
Well,
house.
Are you gonna mix them or are you gonna let Mom finish?
Just go back.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
let's go back and forth.
Okay.
We'll move on to another period.
Bring him up to date.
So you were born in a house too.
Yes, I'm much younger than Hilda.
And he's never
Exactly
let
how much
anybody-
younger?
18 days, I think it is. But I'll tell you what, her mother went up there. They had a rule in Kannapolis City Schools that if you were born before or after November 1st
Right.
of the year, you could not go to school.
Right.
She went up. Of course, she had a lot of pull. And this one being born on November the 2nd still got to go.
Oh.
So she was a year ahead of me in school.
That's right.
Always.
I was. And which might have been a good thing, because we might not have never gotten together.
I didn't realize that.
What?
I don't know.
Unlike her.
Something about dating an older upperclassman. You want to date an upperclassman.
Unlike her, I was never bothered by siblings since I was an only child.
Tell us about.
That wasn't your mother's fault.
You just had
Yeah.
a pony.
Well, it was her mother.
What was your? What do you know about the history of your father and his father?
Oh, well, a little unusual in one respect, in that I saw 3 of my great-grandfathers, which back then was unusual. In fact, I visited all 3 of them. And my dad and my mother were born in Faith, North Carolina, which is about 15 miles or so from Kannapolis. And they migrated to Kannapolis for the same reason that Hilda's mother and father did. That was to work in Cannon Mills.
They all moved there when the mill opened.
Not when it opened, but shortly thereafter.
Right, I guess.
Did your parents know each other?
Yeah, they knew each other. Well, my dad knew his dad.
Oh, because
Through
of the
working
mill.
in the mill.
Did grandmother Malden work in the mill?
No, she never.
Mm,
She already had a couple of kids, and every 2 years thereafter she had children. So between Betty and me, I think Betty was a surprise to her and everybody else.
But
What
your
did-
mom worked
Yes.
in the mill.
Yeah,
Grandma.
she did. For a while.
Where did you meet your great grandfathers?
One of them was a sheriff in Mount Pleasant, North Carolina. One was rather well off and lived in China Grove, North Carolina. And he didn't work as far as I know.
Mm.
And the other one lived out from Faith,
What was your mom's maiden name?
Barger.
Or where were they from? That area or?
Faith.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And my grandfather, Barger, lived with us most of my young life because his wife died rather early.
Who was
As a matter of fact, 3 of Mama's brothers lived with us from one time or another.
Really?
So we had a house full.
is that Uncle Fritz?
Well, Uncle Fritz, Uncle Buck, Uncle Hump.
I didn't
They all had names, but they all
I didn't
had.
know them, but I remember
had
Uncle
nicknames.
Fritz. I remember what he looked like. He was my great uncle. I don't think I ever really thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
I knew Uncle
What
Fritz.
about that?
Grandmother's brother.
See the guy lived in the A-frame? Who was that?
Mm.
No,
No,
that was
that
your
was
friend.
Bud- best friend, Bud Stack.
Um,
His name
She
was
went to
Claude
McKeever
Henry.
Elementary School, and I went to Woodrow Wilson Elementary.
Opposite ends of the big city of Kannapolis.
Right.
So they had two elementary schools.
Well, they had
Well,
more
they
than that.
They did.
Had 8 cops.
Aycock and McKeever, and Jackson Park.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I thought Jackson Park came later.
No,
Still
no,
no.
we used to play them in softball when I was at Woodrow Wilson.
Well, so what did y'all do for fun as kids?
Oh, well, when I was about 3, I learned to play softball and baseball because my daddy was a good ball player. And I was a natural left-handed batter, but he wouldn't let me bat left-handed. He made me bat right-handed. So when he was around, I batted right-handed, and when he wasn't around, I batted left-handed.
There you go. Switch hitter, huh? Did they have industrial league baseball teams for them
Oh, yeah.
at the mill?
Oh, yeah, they had the old Carolina League, which was a professional outfit. And it was called the Outlaw League because some major league players skipped from the major leagues and came there to play for one reason or another.
Right.
And,
Did your dad play with them?
no, he had to work.
Oh, well, yeah.
Well, aside from his mother's 3 brothers who came to live, he had a cousin who came to live. Her name was Ozell
Campbell at that time.
Ozell Campbell. And she kind of grew up there.
She was raised in the orphanage, as her mother died early, too, along with her 2 brothers. And she had a sister who was adopted by my uncle, who lived in China Grove.
Mm.
But as far as I know, Ozella's the only one still living. Matter of fact, I talked to her on the phone about 2 months ago and sent her a Bible that her husband had, and she left it at our house when she got married.
Huh.
We sent it over to her. I haven't heard from her, though. I hope she got it. But one of my fondest memories, since I've played a lot of ball, my dad was manager of one of the better softball teams in the city, and they went over to Charlotte, North Carolina to play one of the teams over there. And they only took 9 players. And along about the 3rd inning, my uncle was pitching, and a guy was stealing second, and the catcher threw it and hit him in the back of the head and knocked him out.
Oh, my.
So they only had 8 players. But I was along, so at 12 years old, I got to play. And I came to bat, batting left-handed, even though my dad was there. And everybody thought it would be easy. And the guy pitching was pitching his fastball, and he pitched it fast to me, and I swung late, hit it right on the inside of third base, and everybody was way over on the other side, and I got a triple out of it. I never will forget it.
That was a big moment in baseball.
Big moment, big moment.
What do you remember about your childhood, Hilda? Your memories?
Well, of course, being having that many older brothers and sisters, when they went to play, I got to go play too. And one of the things I can remember, Kannapolis had a volunteer fire department, and my brother was on the volunteer fire department team, if that's called a team. And they would practice. And at least one night during the week, the street called West Avenue, Oak Street, West Avenue. They'd practice on West Avenue, and of course everybody knew that was the night that the volunteer firemen practiced until you didn't run your buggy or car or whatever up and down that street. It cleared. But people would line the streets watching them. And the fire thing that they pulled, which I guess had the hose and everything on it, also had these things that come out to the side, and each one of them had a strap on it. And I don't know whether it was like 6 or 8 of them. But my brother was part of that. And they'd park that thing just so far from the corner. Then all of the firemen would line up here in 2 rows, run as fast as they could down to that thing, grab one of those things, and race it down the street to the other end of the street. That was the way they practiced, because when they had to go to a fire, they had to foot. So when they got through running up and down the street, then all the kids would run up and down the street. And I was pretty fast to be such a little.
I can vouch.
I was
He could catch
I was really short. And so was my brother still, but nobody was as fast as Charlie Clement, and he could outrun anybody in town, I think, but he never did get to skip on. But we would play Old Man Kick the Can, we'd play games at night, Steal the Flag, if you've ever played that game, and things like that. We had a good time.
Did y'all listen to radios? Did y'all have radios back then?
We had
Yeah,
radio.
Lum and Abner, Amos and Andy.
The Lone Ranger,
Lone
that was my
Ranger.
thing. My mom listened to, in the mornings, she would listen to Ma Perkins. And we always came home, they always came home from work for lunch. My dad was
Right.
a superintendent, he got time off for lunch. So he'd come home, and this was right before lunch or right close to lunch or whatever. And we'd all have to wait till my mom heard Ma Perkins before we could all go eat lunch too. It was usually like 15-minute program
Really?
back then. So that was, I
Yeah.
mean, all the other stuff was a
Did
good
the whole
night.
family sit around to eat and listen to radio?
In the evening,
Yeah.
not a whole lot.
I mean,
Well,
most of the
it was
shows.
on. She kind of controlled it.
Lowell Thomas was the news commentator. Like I say, Amos and Andy and Lum and Abner came on every night.
Jack Benny, Red Skelton, some of them
Really?
later.
Some of those old people.
How old were y'all when you first dated?
14.
We had our first date at 14.
That was an interesting day, I'll tell you.
We went to the high school.
Well, the North Carolina Symphony was playing a concert at the high school that night. And I think it cost $2.
Oh, no.
Well, I think it did.
No, they wouldn't charge you that. They wouldn't charge you that much
Well,
for a
anyway,
concert,
it
not
cost
back
money, I
then.
remember that. And
Well,
that was our first date,
Expensive.
and when we got out, it was raining cats and dogs. Everybody walked there, but didn't have a car. So I had to call a taxi to get home, and it cost $1. And that's all I had was $1. And that was our first date.
When did y'all first meet?
We were introduced by the fellow by the name of Tommy Kaufman.
Hallman.
No, Hallman, I'm sorry.
Kaufman was his
Yeah,
daughter.
okay. And,
Tommy
I-
Hallman. Thomas Dexter Hallman to be
and I,
specific.
most everybody at the lunch hour congregated in around the high school. We always
Waiting for
stopped
the bell
on
to ring.
on the corner right before you.
What grade were you in at this point?
Eight.
He was
I was in
in
the
eighth.
eighth, she was in
Okay,
the ninth.
okay.
And he came over and he said, you know, there's somebody over there you ought to meet. I said, well, who's that? He said, Hilda Long. So we went over, I met her, and
That
I
was
don't think we impressed each other very much.
Did y'all have nicknames in high school? Or what did you go by?
I've always been Micey.
Oh, you were? You just go by Hilda?
At one point in time, this was like, what, about junior something. This guy gave me the nickname of Jigger. Don't ask me why, but he called me Jigger. And it caught on pretty good. And it followed me to Shenandoah.
Doesn't
Yeah,
Aunt John
all
like
through
that?
college, we were Jigger and Micey.
But we're also Hilda and Charles, and one of my best friends' names was Hilda, and the other guy in his class was named Charles, and so she dated him, and we dated, and so it was Hilda and Charles and Hilda and Charles. And Charles was made president of the student body, and the other Charles was vice president of the student body. And Charles had the distinction of being, I think, the only guy who ran for president of student body and was not opposed by anybody. Nobody would oppose him.
How many kids were, now you went to separate, how many high schools were there in Kannapolis?
One.
So you came up, did they have a junior, did you go from?
No junior high at that
We
time.
only went to the 11th grade. If you were in the 8th grade, how'd that work?
The 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. Later, at the time they started the junior high school, they went to a 12th grade.
Right, so you went, 1st through 7th was elementary,
They
then
had
you
And
the
then
12th.
8 through 11 was
high
high
school.
school.
I got you.
And if you were set to graduate at the 11th grade, you could go ahead. But you could come back and do the 12th grade. About that time, the war came along.
Right,
When I was and so when I graduated, I went back to the 12th grade. When he graduated, he went to school, but later that year went
Right.
to insert it.
When I graduated, I went to Wake Forest for a quarter. And then I knew I was going to be drafted. And there
You
was
went to Shenandoah?
some folks at Shenandoah at that time. So I went up there for 6 weeks. And then I was drafted.
And this same dear little fella who nicknamed me Jigger introduced him to a girl and wanted very much for him to for them to get together. That didn't work.
Okay, how many times did y'all break up in school?
Did we break up?
Really?
You said he used to say
There was
let's
one
date
time,
them.
well, we did.
Okay.
One
well,
time, he wanted to date somebody else. I said, okay. Did you date somebody else?
No, I was working. I was running 3 jobs at that time.
In high school?
During the Christmas vacation,
Really?
I'd go work the mill for 2 weeks. And I always worked at the YMCA. I kept it open every Friday night, all night, because the third shift would come in and take showers and that sort of thing. I'd be the only one up there.
Huh.
And then during Christmas, I'd work in a clothing store.
Really? Besides working at the mill?
Besides working at the
You worked in the mill.
I worked in the mill.
What'd you do?
Well, I didn't go to work in the mill till I graduated from high school because they wouldn't let me. I had to have a job where I would have an hour for lunch. I was just 16. I graduated from high school when I was 16, and you had to have an hour for lunch. So I had a job for the summertime, and I worked a year. Well, I did. I worked a whole year, and then when his class graduated, because I was pretty much involved with more of them than I was my own class. They were going to Shenandoah Conservatory of Music because of the band director there. So I said I wanted to go too. So I quit my job and went to Shenandoah, got my degree, Bachelor of Music Education.
Didn't you carry mail around the...
Well, that was because they were drafting the boys, and about the one that I took his job, carrying things around, messages around to the different departments. So I got a raise from 42 cents to 54 cents an hour.
An hour.
Well, actually, the first 2 times
right.
I worked in the mill in the summertime, I worked in the weave room where my dad had always worked. And matter of fact, one summer I washed every window in number 1 weave room. But I made minimum wage at that time. I think it was 30 cents an hour. And after I met Hilda, I had some pull because her dad was a superintendent. And I went to work in the packing room then, where he
Really?
was superintendent, and made 45 cents an hour.
So her dad had a higher rank in the structure out there than your dad did?
Yeah.
Well, his dad was
He was an overseer.
overseer of the weave room,
He did.
No more.
Mr. Malden was a superintendent.
Yeah.
wrapping, packing, and shipping was a pretty good job.
Wrapping, packing, and shipping.
Right. I mean, they wrapped and packed and shipped a whole lot
I
of stuff.
bet.
Okay, well, when were you made queen?
Queen.
Well,
What was that?
Maybe. Well, I don't know if you ever heard of May Day exercises, and some high schools did them occasionally. But it was a tradition at Shenandoah that they had a May Day festival, and they crowned a queen. And that was my senior year there, and that was
Well, I was at college.
not in the conservatory, 1948.
Well, back to high school. Who were your best friends and your running buddies? And where are they now, if you know?
Do you go on me or who? Go ahead.
No, well, one of my best friends was a guy that went to Woodrow Wilson with me, and we played ball together from the time we were about 8 years old all the way up to high school. And his name was Ed Messer. And I had not seen Ed for many, many years until Hilda's brother Lacey died last year. And I'm sure he felt like we would be there.
Right.
So he came over from Charlotte, where he's living,
Huh.
just to see us. And
Huh.
I was real pleased about that.
So you guys went to school all the way through high school together?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. That's interesting.
As a matter of fact, I made the speech that got him made president of the senior class, and that's the first thing he said at the funeral home was, "I've come to see the guy that made me president of the senior."
Well, I had 2 or 3 good friends. Well, I had a whole lot more than that, but a couple of them that I ran around with all the time and we'd talk on the telephone. One was Hilda Edmiston that I told you about. She dated Charles Ross. His name was, but they called him Charles. And when he went in service, they didn't use middle names, so they called him Fife. So now he goes by Fife, so it's Hilda and Fife. But at that time, he was Charles. And then the other friend was in his class. She was in my class. The other friend was in Charles' class, and they lived several houses down from us, so I got to associate with her all summer long, was Mary Ludinia Whitten, and they called her Dean Whitten, and she was my the best friend. She was killed in an automobile accident about 2 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. She and her husband would go places and bring back automobiles. I don't know what kind of job you'd call it, but they brought back automobiles, I guess, to be sold. And apparently he ran a stop sign, or the other guy ran a stop sign, and it crashed into her side and killed her instantly. The husband is still living, which is
That's sad.
very sad. Very sad. But they were my best friends.
Did y'all have a prom at your high school?
Oh, yeah.
Did y'all go?
Did we go to prom? Did we ever go to prom together? You and I?
Yeah,
Okay.
No?
went to the junior and senior
Yeah,
prom.
okay.
Well, no, we didn't go to the junior prom because you were a junior and I was still a poor little sophomore. And you went with a guy by the name of Bill Robertson.
Bill Robertson. He was my
Yeah, you
sweetheart
remember
all the way
that.
through the first grade, all up on the through high school. I mean, he was, except that I was
Through
like
high
him.
school.
All up to high school.
I thought you said through high school.
That's news.
No, if I couldn't have married Charlie, I was going after Bill. He was my second.
Then I'll make a confession now, since she's brought up Bill Robertson. I think I'm the only guy that kissed 4 May Queens at Centerville College.
Really? Okay. Well, you wouldn't know that for sure. There's no way you'd know that without asking each one of them.
Yeah, but I went to school with all of them.
At Shenandoah?
Yeah.
Huh, you
Jessie
kissed-
Crumbo was the May Queen.
When I was there,
Well,
I was there
Who?
with Jessie
She
Trumbo
was the
because
trumpet- she was
I
the
was in
trumpet.
charge of that May Queen. I was in charge of the,
Uh-oh.
she was the trumpet player when I was there for 6 weeks.
Were y'all on a break?
there was a little girl in high
It was
school.
testing her lip strength.
In high school, there was a girl who played second violin beside him in the orchestra. I had no idea that she had a thing going for him, but I found out. But unfortunately,
Beat her up or something?
she died very early too. She should not have had children, and she did, and it didn't set
She
well.
died when she was 33.
Did y'all play? Did you both have an interest in music at an early age?
I took
Yeah.
piano from the time I was knew how to do a grasshopper. And I was in the girls' chorus, and then in the mixed chorus. And then I held a cello in band, orchestra. Never played a band instrument.
Did you have the bow?
I had the bow, but I didn't do a whole lot with it. They just needed another cello player, and so the director asked me to do it, so I took it. If I had more time, I think I could have done it.
I took violin for 2 or 3 years when I was about 7 years old. And then I quit completely. And then in the 7th grade, they started instrumental music in the 5th, 6th, and 7th grades, and I took up trumpet. Then I went to high school and quit. One day the band director called me down and wondered if I wanted to play in the band. I said, well, I only had 1 year. He said, that's all right. Come on in. So I played last chair, cornet, and Hilda's brother, C.L., played first chair, cornet.
Oh, really?
And there were about 18 or 20 people between C.L. and I. But I got real interested then in that and went to a music school at Davison for 6 weeks. I think it cost a whole $100, not a lot of money back there for 6 weeks. With Scott's food and everything, no instruction. And got to be a little bit better cornet player. But the thing I really remember about that was, I was 13 years old. And they gave out all kind of acknowledgments at a banquet at the end, you know, in time for that. And I didn't win anything in music, but I was voted the most athletic.
Well, sports was his first love.
Did you play baseball for the high school team?
played when I was in the 8th grade, and then the war came along and we couldn't travel or anything like that because we had no gas or anything. And that's another one of the things I'm real proud of. I hit 313 as a freshman 8th grader against high school guys.
Huh. That's good.
So when did you pick your violin back up?
Oh, they started an orchestra when I was in the 10th grade, I guess it was. And the band director's wife, they got married. She was from Shenandoah too. And she was director of the orchestra. And she heard that I had taken violin at one time or another. So I got it back out, played a little bit for her. And I was the concert master of the first orchestra at Kenny Hoskin.
So you were first chair and all that kind of stuff. Violin in college?
Well, I was till I decided that I'd like to play viola. And,
You play viola?
last 2 years I just ended up.
Like Brian.
Yeah.
I just wanted to learn to play it.
Huh. Okay, so you're in college. When did you go into the war?
Oh, I graduated from high school in 1943. And was drafted in March, I guess it was, of 1944. Which, don't know if I'll talk about this, but I will anyway. When I was a junior in high school, I applied for an appointment to the Naval Academy, and I didn't get it. So I was drafted into the Army, and I finished basic training out in Texas, and was called to come up at battalion headquarters one day. And I said, well, I haven't done anything wrong. Why have they called me up there? I got up there, and they said, you have an appointment to the Naval Academy. And I said, well, I don't want it. And they said, well, you didn't hear us. You got an appointment to the Naval Academy. And I said, well, what are the options? I said, well, you can stay in the Army and take the test next year. Or you can get a discharge from the Army and go to a private school and take the test next year. Or you can get a discharge from the Army and take 10 days vacation and join the Navy, and they'll send you to school and you take the test next year. I said, well, I don't like the Army all that much, and I haven't got any money, so I can't go to a private school, so I'll take the 10 days and join the Navy, and that's what I did. And they did send me to school. I had no physics, no chemistry. I did have geometry and algebra. There were 6 subjects: English, history, geometry, physics, algebra. I think that's 6. I worked real hard on physics and chemistry, and made good grades on the test. The one thing I never thought about even studying was English, and I flunked it by 2 points. So since the other grades were pretty good, they went back 3 times to find out, well, why does this guy flunk? And finally they came back from the Naval Academy and said, well, his grammar's okay, his essay was good, but this guy spells like a 5th grader. And I never have been able to spell. So if I could only have spelled, I probably would be a retired admiral today.
I've been shot down over the Pacific somewhere.
So what boat were you? Ship
Oh,
boats.
after I flunked the Naval Academy exam, I was assigned to USS Midway, which was an aircraft carrier. And was there for 9 months.
What year was that?
That was in 1945. And that rascal was 925 feet long. The first day I walked on board, the hangar deck was cleared. There was nothing on it. And it looked like the biggest garage in the whole world. 925 feet of nothing but empty spaces and boxes.
Unbelievable.
So what did you do?
I was in the gunnery division. And we were at quad 40 millimeters. There were 6 on each side of the ship. There were 6 gun turrets from each side of the ship. And think it was 6 5-inch guns on each side of the ship.
Huh.
And we'd have gunnery practice and shoot at this rascal going over that somebody was pulling and all that kind of stuff.
Could y'all hit it?
Hmm?
Could y'all hit it?
Oh yeah. So it was mostly about radar.
Oh really?
Mhm.
Oh really? I didn't know that.
Even then.
Huh.
And
So did
stayed
you-
on that thing 9 months. The war ended after about 7 months when I was on it, and 2 months later I was discharged.
Where were y'all going during the time?
At that time we were in the Atlantic and mostly, and we made, I think 4 or 5 trips to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. The most interesting thing we did, we took jet airplanes were just coming in.
Hmm.
And they didn't know how a jet would hold up in really cold weather. So we took a cruise to off the coast of Labrador, where it was about 60 degrees below zero.
Huh.
And a couple of interesting things happened. First of all, they said there should be no cameras on board. Well, about the 5th day out, we ran into a bunch of whales. And it was just like goldfish, for crying out loud. There's so many whales out there.
Huh.
And 3,500 cameras came out. And we passed 3 icebergs, and we actually got into one situation where you couldn't even see the water. You could see nothing but ice.
Huh.
And we shouldn't have been there. And there was a lot of concern at that one time.
Did you get
But
out?
we got out of it all right.
Huh. That's interesting. So you never shot at never had to shoot at a hostile?
Nobody ever shot at me, and I never shot at
That's
them.
good. That's good. So what year did you first get in the service? You got in the Army first. What year was that?
1944.
Oh, okay. Just as the next
As a
year.
matter of fact, we were set to go to Japan. We were going to go down and go through and go to the Pacific in about 2 weeks when the war ended.
Oh, the Midway was?
Mhm.
Really? Like getting ready for the invasion. Huh. Yeah, you would have definitely used those guns then, wouldn't you? Huh. So what were you doing during this time, Hilda?
Dating the other guy.
What were you really doing, Mom?
Well, I worked a year before I went to Shenandoah. Then went to Shenandoah. And
Oh, what year was that when you started your first year there?
45, 46, I guess.
No.
So you did
44, 45?
Yeah.
44, 4. Yeah, that's right. I graduated in 43.
Because you were a junior.
And went back to 43. So I went to work that summer and worked a year.
So you worked a year,
It's
then went to
44,
college.
45 when I went to Shenandoah. And I remember when the war ended. And, but before that, I'm going to back up. I had a cousin who sang well. And I had been in some amateur hour programs and loved to sing all my life. So when I got to be in the 8th grade, and she was, I guess, in the 10th grade, she was in the high school glee club, which was a girls' glee club, like 3 parts. So she said, why don't you come and sing? We met maybe twice a week, something like that. It wasn't every day. So I joined the girls' glee club. And then from there on into the mixed chorus when Miss Roar came. And our kids, they might have assumed that being president and everything, Charlie made the honor society. They just didn't know that I did my last year in school. And I have my little thing, you know.
National Honor Society?
And so every Monday at school, they had what they called chapel. And so some of us in the Honor Society would be put in charge of the program for that half hour. And when it came my turn, I gave Mr. Meisenheimer his first opportunity to sing a solo. And he sang the Lord's Prayer on my chapel program.
Huh, really?
I thought that was pretty good.
That's neat.
Then I went to Shenandoah.
You gave a junior a chance to.
Yeah. Not a whole lot more. Just went to school.
So when Charlie went off to serve in the service, and you guys were when y'all weren't married yet. What year did y'all get married?
49.
After you got back then. But y'all were
After
still
he got
dating. Were y'all dating when he left, or were y'all?
Yeah. He wrote religiously when he went to Davidson for summer school. He would write to me at least once a week. He was over there for about 6 weeks, I guess. I kept all the letters.
Do you still have them?
We'd meet the mailman at lunchtime because I was still coming home for lunch.
Right.
We'd meet the mailman at lunchtime. He'd have to dig through and find out if I had a letter.
Do you still have them?
No.
She know much of typewriters now.
Yeah.
She hadn't. She's not telling.
And he came to see me a couple of times at Shenandoah before he got out of service, and then he came up there when I was, I guess I was a junior by that time. And he came to Shenandoah.
So that was in 46. No. 46? 47?
That was in September 46, I started.
We graduated in 50. I graduated in 48.
Oh, okay. So you
We
were
married
still 2 years
49.
after she.
Married in 49, and I went back with him in 50.
So,
I was discharged in June of 46.
Oh, okay.
so how, when, and where did you pop the big question?
On her front porch. And you know what she said?
Ask my daddy.
Yeah.
On her front porch at her parents' house?
Yeah. And so I went and asked him, and he said, ask your mother.
Really?
So we went and asked my mother. So then I taught a year. He went back for his junior year. And that summer we were married, and then I went back with him in 1940. The fall of 1949, he graduated in spring 50.
You taught where?
Weinkauf Consolidated School. It was
You mean
county
school-age
school.
children?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I had from the first through the 7th grade going into the classroom to teach music,
Right.
and then I had an 8th grade chorus. And later they organized mixed chorus, and I had it for a year.
What did you get your degree in? Just music?
Public school music.
Oh, really?
Music education.
So same thing CL's got his in? I mean, I know he doesn't be a band director.
Except mine was vocal, his was instrumental,
Really?
and so was Charles. Oh,
So
he
you had
was
the same
orchestra.
degree, Charles?
That's it.
Bachelor of Music Education, BMED.
It was kind of interesting after we got married, we had to find a place to live. So
To go to school.
we got back to Shenandoah that semester. So we looked around here, couldn't find anything. And
He picked
We
out the biggest house in Dayton.
picked out the biggest house in Dayton, and we knew the mayor lived there. And I had met him before, but he didn't really know me. And then went out and said, do you know any place we might, get a room? And he,
Talked to his wife.
said, just a minute. He went back, he came back and said, we got a room. And it was a great big room. It had a sofa in it, and a big bed, and a fireplace. I mean,
Really?
it's almost an apartment in one great big old room.
No closet.
No closet.
Back then they didn't have closet. And the house was like on 3 levels, three or 4 different levels, like they would add to it or something.
Right.
But anyway, we looked at each other. Well, okay. We moved in.
What did he charge you?
Well, it went on for a month or so, and nobody said anything about paying. And so one day I said, now, what did we owe you for the room? And he said, well, would $12 a month be all right? So we had it for $12 a month. And she was working in the bookstore and making about $50 or $60 a month. And I was,
That much, 50, 60 cents an hour.
well, whatever.
Or 2 or 3 hours a day.
I took a job in a little old restaurant there.
Called the pantry.
Called a pantry.
Huh.
And for that, I got all the meal, all I could eat. And the government was paying me $105 a month.
Oh, on GI Bill.
GI Bill.
Oh, there you go.
And we had more money than we ever had in our lives.
Since then.
Ever since then, huh?
What's the- What? Tell us about your wedding.
My what?
Your wedding. Did y'all have a big
I thought
fancy
you
wedding?
said my weight.
Well, the wedding was kind of left to me since I was in Kannapolis, and that's where we were going to get married. Trinity Methodist Church it was then. And we had 4 bridesmaids and 4, what is it, groomsmen, or did they call them that? And a maid of honor.
Who was that?
Betty was my maid of honor.
Who was the second?
His uncle? Your
Well,
dad?
my dad was the best man. My cousin, Bob Barter, who died last year, was one. My uncle, Harold Meisenhower, who is 91 years of age right now and still living, was one of them.
Really?
Roy Malden was one of them, his brother.
You see, I wasn't one.
Who the other was?
My bridesmaids were Hilda, my good friend, and Dean, my other good friend, and Edith Boger, another good friend, and then Betty was the maid of honor.
Huh.
And,
So maybe there was just 3.
and your dad,
Yeah, I guess that's
who was your
what
best man. And we had a soloist, a tenor soloist, who had been in school when we were. I did not have a bridal consultant. It would have been a good idea too, but I didn't have none. And my mom was not well, and so my sister did what we had, a cake cutting after the wedding. Well, most of them happened after the wedding, but we didn't go to dinner. His mom was not all that well, and I don't think they
Well, they just
needed-
didn't do things
They
like
just
that.
didn't.
Right.
And we didn't have a reception.
You just had the wedding and do some rice and y'all took off?
We got my dad's Pontiac
Mhm.
And you went where?
to Curie Beach, North Carolina.
Down
We
below
stayed in
Wilmington.
the darndest
Down below.
old cabin you've ever seen in your life. And
It was a little efficiency apartment, and man, was it ever efficient.
Yeah.
When you went, let me tell you, the bath, well, it wasn't a bathroom. It was the room where the commode was, also had the shower in it.
So what, you stand in the potty to
You come, that's right,
but you know,
practically,
the darndest thing was,
for $20 a week. That's
you
what-
know, and I had $50 for that whole time. We had to pay that $20, and of course we had to eat.
Eat.
And what happens on the very first day?
Hi, you have reached 476-9864. We can't get
What happened on the first day was her ear starts bobbing. So we have to go to a doctor. He washes out her ear and charges $10 of what we had left. But she did pay us back. We went up on the boardwalk that night and we played bingo. And I think you got 3 cards for 50 cents or something like that. And she won $12. So we made it through the week.
Way to go, Mom. You've been lucky ever since, haven't you?
We went back 2 or 3 nights and tried to win some more. I think we did win a little bit more, but people didn't like her coming in there because we were winning stuff. That's about it. Oh, and he bought me this ring, but I didn't want to wear my diamond into the water. I was afraid I'd lose it. So we bought this little band for $2.
Really?
And it's, I think it's 12 karat gold.
Oh, you still got it?
Oh, yeah. Had it for 51 years. So I left all my jewelry at home today, this
I
time,
hope it's still there.
and wore this, and I wore another watch that was not my expensive watch, and a bracelet with you. So that's all I did. Also, earrings.
And then we went back and she taught school and I taught school and you got paid for 9 months and didn't get the money for 3 months and we couldn't even meet. Many a time. For breakfast we'd have peanut butter and cracker. And then at night we wouldn't have any supper but we'd eat ice cream, make homemade ice cream. And that's when they had the conventions to elect the president.
Yeah.
And they'd go on to 3 o'clock in the morning, we'd sit up at 3 o'clock in the morning and eat ice cream and watch.
Well, they didn't want anybody who was going to quit in the fall to go teach school. They wouldn't give you a job. when I was in high school, I would work on the weekends in a little dress shop called the Smart Shop. And one Saturday, and the clothes were anywhere from $5 to 10 or 15. And one Saturday, I sold $100 worth of clothes, and of course the the owner had to point me out as the best salesman that day. So I sold $100.
Did you get a bonus?
And no. But what you do be to ask somebody if you could help them. They'd pick out clothes and you'd hold them, and then you'd go and help them in this little cubby hole where you pull the curtain to get in and out of those clothes so they could try them on. And that's what I did. And so one of me, I sold that many. I can't remember. I don't know how in the world I sold. I did take a whole lot of selling and say
$100 if they're selling for $5 a
anywhere from 5 to 10, 15. And I bought some of my clothes there to take to school.
So how long were y'all married before you had kids, and where did you live and all that kind of stuff?
We stayed with his mom and dad through the summer. Then we went back to Shenandoah and stayed up there that year. When we came back, I guess we moved back in with his mom and dad, but found out that these people that went to their church had a house. They were going to buy the one beside it and move into it, and we were going to rent their house, which we did. We rented that. And how long we lived there? I guess till we moved to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And we were married 5 years before Chuck was born. Wasn't that we didn't try, it just didn't happen. So,
Well, the interesting thing about that was one doctor said, well, she needs to have some tests done. She needs to go to New York.
New York?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
No, it was.
I don't remember that.
Well, I don't care. That's where it was.
And who was that?
I've forgotten
Go
now.
to New York for what?
To have tests done.
Oh, boy.
Right, and it was going to cost $1,800.
Oh, honey.
That's right.
You're making that up.
No, I'm not.
I know nothing
And
about that, and I would think that if
and
I was
then
going to
she
have to do
went,
something
she
like
went to her uncle who was a doctor, and he advised her just to go and forget about it and have a good time.
And, well, I can tell you, we went, my two sisters, Dorothy and Thelma, and my sister-in-law, Jo, decided we were going to go to the beach, and we were going to go by ourselves. The four of us were going to the beach, and this was in August. And we were gone for over a weekend. We came back, and that's when Chuck was conceived. And
Missed you, huh?
Dorothy kind of instigated that trip. She wanted to do this, so we did. She says you can give me credit for Chuck. So, anyway, that's
So you had Chuck.
Chuck.
You how old?
When he was born,
Uh-huh.
28. We were married when we were 23,
Mhm.
and I was 23, and Chuck was born when I was 28.
Okay.
That's the way it was. I don't know how old you were.
You were there, obviously.
I was 23.
Okay.
So then,
So then, we were teaching school, and
Trying to eat. Well, you were, by that time, with the Travelers.
that's right.
insurance.
And Chuck was like a year and a half or two.
But he wasn't born in Atlanta.
No, born in Kannapolis.
We were still living in that house. The
But she
same
rented
house.
from you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Rented from the,
Whoever the
Their
people
names.
were.
what was their names?
Who, Kaiser?
Mm-hmm.
Wait,
Flay and some kind. And they transferred him to Atlanta. So we moved to Atlanta, bought a house. Then they moved him back to Charlotte. But by that time, we were expecting another baby. Well, before they moved him to Atlanta, we were expecting a baby and lost it. So then we were expecting another baby. And they moved him to Atlanta. We weren't really sure of that one till we got down there, found out. So Donnie was born at Emory University Hospital on December the 25th, 6, at 25 minutes after 12 o'clock. And then they moved us back to Charlotte. And from Charlotte, we moved back to Kannapolis. And then we built a house in Kannapolis because we didn't know when we were going again. Moved into that house. Almost by the time we got into that house, they moved him to Erie, Pennsylvania. We lived in Erie, Pennsylvania about 2.5 years with, that's not right.
You're missing something.
That's right. Donnie was born in 1956. We moved back to Kannapolis. We moved to Charlotte, then to Kannapolis, lived in this little house, in which Donnie was electrocuted. And we were there long enough that we had another baby named Lane, and we built a house and moved into that house. And she was, I guess, over a year old when he was transferred to Erie, Pennsylvania.
Not as old as Isabel is now.
And one bright summer day, she took off all her clothes and was riding her tricycle up and down the street in Erie, Pennsylvania. And the neighbor brought her home.
Who's it?
Lane. And from Erie, Pennsylvania, we moved to Lubbock, Texas. And from Lubbock, Texas to Minneapolis, St. Paul.
How long did you stay in Lubbock?
Lubbock, 2 years.
No,
I
about
think we
22
stayed in-
months.
I think we stayed in Erie, not Erie, yeah, Erie, longer than most any of the other little places. And moved to Minnesota, where they told him, Charlie, you're going to be there a while. They made him a manager, and you're going to be there a while, so get you a good place to live and everything. So we moved into the Howard Johnson Motel for 2 weeks while we were trying to find a place to live. Finally rented this house because of some connection between the person who owned it and somebody in Harvard.
No, that's a story. I ought to tell that.
And then, because we rented it for the summer, because he ran a camp, and they were gone, and they rented their house, so we rented the house. And while we were building another house, but it wasn't quite ready when they came back. They had to move out
Crystal ball motel?
was that what it was? Was, wasn't it? Labor Day, we had to be out because they were coming back. So we moved into this little efficiency apartment. Then they finished the house. We moved into the house. We were there for 10 months. They transferred him to Houston, Texas.
What's the story about the house you said you should tell?
Well, I called this lady that somebody told me about renting her house that summer. And she said, well, no, I don't think so. And I said, well, I've just been transferred here with Travelers Insurance Company, and I really need a place to live. She said, the Travelers. And it turned out that she was the sister of the president of the Travelers. And she said, why don't you come on over and let's talk about this? So we went over and met her, and in 15 minutes we rented that house for the summer. So we were there. And they had it was a nice house in one of the better sections of Minneapolis, and it had a fully completed basement
With a game
apartment
room and
with a
all.
game room and all that kind of stuff. And I think we paid them, what, $50 a month?
I don't remember.
Something like
We paid
that.
all that.
Something very reasonable, because she did, after she found out that I was with the Travelers.
Did you ever meet her brother?
Huh?
Did
Oh,
you ever?
yeah.
And then you moved to Houston.
Boy, we've been there for a long
And we were there for 3 months trying to find a place to go to church, because that was our big thing. Everywhere we moved, we found a good church to go to. We went around and we visited and visited and visited. And finally, his boss at the Travelers said, well, he'd heard that the Methodist church over on West Homer had pretty good music department, had a good choir and everything, and people liked them. So we went there one Sunday, and we pulled into the parking lot, and I said, well, I like the back of the church. And we went in, and I said, I like the inside. I mean, it was that kind of Gothic stuff. And I heard the choir, I said, this is it. we have nothing else to do but to join. And so we joined the choir before they could ever get back out to us to, the ministers then visited. If you wanted to join, you signed something and they came to visit you. And so by the time he got out there, we'd already been in the choir. We'd sung their Christmas cantata with them and everything. Finally joined the church. And we went in November, or, yeah, October, November, and joined the church, I think, sometime in December.
What year was that? 60?
66.
So that's where we've been ever since.
How'd y'all pick that location? Where you live? In the house you live on Augustine, that's where the first one you bought?
Well, the story behind that too. Our furniture was on the way down here, and we had to find a house within 2 days, or else it was going to have to be stored and all that kind of stuff. So this one happened to be completed, so we bought it.
Well,
Okay.
he showed us a lot of houses. And the reason we were out there, once more, his boss said, well, Sharpstown seems to be the way it's going, and said, a lot of people are moving out there.
That was before Mr. Sharp got in his problem.
Right. Yeah, the big Sharpstown scandal and all that stuff. Was the mall was already out there?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But then
But the Southwest Freeway ended in Beach Nut, which is right there.
Right.
That
Huh.
way you can-
There's a lot less crowded,
and
wasn't
so
it?
did Gessner end right up there at Bel Air. So when they opened up Gessner to go all the way north, then you'd have to know something about Houston, you know what we're talking about. And then put the Southwest Freeway through to at least Sugar Land, and I don't know
Right.
how far beyond. It opened up a whole new world for us. So.
Huh. Well, that's
Then
interesting.
we've been very involved at St. Luke's United Methodist Church, as it is now. And we were there during the term of the second minister. The first minister had taken the position as president of, what college? Was that, well, anyway, he had gone on. And so the minister who was there then was made bishop, and they had another minister, and he was made bishop, and the minister who came after him is still there because when they asked him to be moved up to like where he'd be in position to be bishop, he turned it down. He
Yeah.
did not want to do that. And I don't blame him.
Dr. Moore?
That's right.
He said, I don't want to be a bishop.
That's right.
Oh, good for him. He'll live longer.
Well, that too, but he didn't want to move. He is a people person,
Right.
and that required a lot of delegating, you know, and trying to build up your churches and wherever it was you were the bishop, whatever you were over. And usually they sent them to Louisiana.
Well, an interesting thing about talking about preachers. When Chuck and Daphne were married, they were married in Baton Rouge. And the preacher that married them was
The minister, first
Reverend Hearn. And when he found out that I was from St. Luke's, Bishop Chamlin, who had gone over there to be bishop, had his office in the church there. He insisted I go down and talk to Bishop Chamlin. So I spent about 30 or 45 minutes with Bishop Chamlin down there, and we had a good time because we knew each other.
Do you remember?
And it wasn't too long after that that Bishop Chamlin died. But another funny part about that is that Reverend Hearn, who married Chuck and Daphne, later came to Houston as the bishop.
and he
Houston
has
Bishop.
just recently retired.
Huh.
How many, like, main people, what are they called?
How many ministers does St. Luke's have?
Yeah.
How many have they had?
No.
Oh,
Or
do they have now?
Staff members.
That's interesting.
7 actual ministers.
Who?
And then there's 4
Diaconal?
diagonal ministers
Is that like,
who are women.
Over the years, they've had a lot. And they've also had retired bishops on their staff.
Did y'all grow up going to church?
I lived right across the street from the church.
So y'all were there.
Well-
His mom taught Sunday school all the time.
But you didn't go to Methodist church.
No, he was a Lutheran.
Lutheran.
You grew up in Lutheran, Charlie?
Yeah, we had real wine at communion.
Might as well.
And they came when we were living in the house that we told you on Lee Street.
Right.
his minister came down to talk to us, and he said he said, told how they did their communion, that they really believed it to be the body and blood. And I didn't say anything, he was nodded. He said, she's not even going to argue with me. Well, what did I know? And it didn't matter to me. If that's what they thought, fine. You know.
Okay, so it's the year 2000. So where are you now?
Well, I will back up one
Okay, back up.
to October of 1999.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long they had it, but the church had started what's the word I want? They were giving to certain members of the church and a significant honor for their work that they were doing in the church. And it was called the Distinguished Life Award. And we got it.
That's great. With that man like y'all.
Yeah, she's been trying to make me do better ever since.
Well, that's great. Congratulations. So you got a trophy or award or a little...
That's the Christmas.
And we bought the light for it. That's for Christmas, right?
It's 8 inches.
It's crystal. Did we see it?
I've seen it. I don't know if you saw it when you were
Maybe I
there.
didn't see it.
I thought I showed it to everybody.
So they made a big presentation in front of the whole church and everything.
Yes,
There were 4 of them that got it the year
at the
we
same
got it.
time.
I think there were 5 or 6 this year. They
But
do it
they've
once
done
a
it
year.
every year for I don't know how many years. And the thing, the first year that they did that, as of now, every one of them has died. The very first year that they did it,
Really?
all of them. But that was like 10, 12 years ago
Huh.
that they started. I never thought we'd ever get it because we've just been so involved in the music department that when you see how much other stuff that goes on in that church.
Oh, you've been
Who are
more
we?
involved than you realize, though.
It is a big church.
So don't even community. Doing
Well, that's
kids'
great.
choirs. So now you have kids, grandkids. Name them up.
And their birthdays.
They do have one thing the new choir director did was organize a youth choir. And they have about 70 to 75 kids in that choir.
Good.
And
How many people do
they
y'all have?
started from nothing.
That's good.
Well, right now it's the music. Well, we could talk a lot about the music department at St. Louis, and it's growing, I guess, because now we have 3 services and there are 3 full choirs, plus a chamber singers choir, and I guess that's all about. But anyway, like you say, this is the year 2000. We had in 1954 we had our first child, who was Chuck, named after Charles and after Charles' dad. So we took Charles, and this is my son's middle name, Monroe. His name is Charles Monroe Meissenheimer. Then in 56 we had Donald James Meissenheimer. I don't know where I got the Donald, just like it. And using his middle name, Donald James Meissenheimer. Well, Donnie was killed when he was 19 months old. And in October the next year, we had Lane, born in 1959. And they went to school, went to college. Chuck went to Texas Tech in Texas. Lane went to the University of Texas. They graduated and both got married after so long a time, whatever, and had 2 children each. Chuck had Lindsay, Eileen Meissenheimer, and Jamie Colleen Meissenheimer, named after the 2 of us, like James and my middle name Colleen. But they changed it to Jamie Colleen. Lane had Matthew, Robert, what year? Don't know what year. But right now he's 15 years old. So subtract. You subtract. And Emily Jane, and her birthday is August the 19th. Matthew's is November the 14th. Jamie's is February the 25th, excuse me. And Lindsay's January 5th. Then here comes little Isabel Colleen, and I don't know who she was surprised the most. But anyway, she's like almost 2 years old. She's like 22 months right now. And her birthday is February 22nd. I knew that. And so, and Rick was the first one. Richard Allen Moses Jr. Came with the package deal with when Chuck got married. He was Daphne's son. His dad was killed in an industrial accident, and he had already lost his paternal grandparents, and he'd lost his maternal grandmother. Still has a maternal grandfather, yeah. But after a while, I mean, he was so many years without relatives on his dad's side, and living in a house among Meisenheimers, he decided he wanted to change his name. So he went through all the court procedures and legally changed his name to now he is Richard Allen Meisenheimer, and he is getting married on February the 17th to a young lady named Vanessa Santoya, yes. And he's 24 years old at this time. Lindsay's 17. Jamie is 12 and will be 13 in February. Matthew is 15, will be 16 next November. Emily is 12 and will be 13 next August. Isabel will be 2 in February of 2001. So there.
Parting shots?
Well, our life revolves mostly around St. Luke's United Methodist Church, the music department of St. Luke's United Methodist Church, plus the senior adults now that we are in that category. And we've done some plays and things. Just that's another whole story. Where was I going? But I like to play bridge, and I will play bridge whenever I get an opportunity, and Charles likes to play golf. And we happen to be lucky enough to belong to a country club where he can play golf and I can play bridge. So that's what we do, and we have a great time. Right now we've had dogs most of our married life, and then all of a sudden we had a cat, and that cat brought another one, and then the one cat died. I won't tell you how. But another cat came up to live with the one that we had then, and so now,
and so on,
and so on. So now we have 3 cats, and we're feeding 4 more that we hope to capture and take them where they can be adopted by somebody who needs a cat.
Because you don't.
Because we don't need another cat.
And you had a great dog named Sandy.
We had a dog named Sandy. We had lots of dogs. In our married life, we had one dog named Tony. He was shot by a neighbor because he was snooping around his chicken lot and wouldn't have hurt a flea, I don't think. But he was kind of stupid, so maybe he would have, I don't know. Then Charles' daddy picked up a cute little puppy named, and we named him Penny because he was kind of small. No, we had Penny. Then Penny got hit by a car. Then we had Peanut. Now, Peanut was the one that his dad gave her. Then I was working at a radio station, and here comes this dog across the street, fat as she could be. And since it was in the month of December, and the poor dog had nowhere to go, it came home with me. When I was in college, I picked up a dog named Sandy. and a little girl named Sandy washed him, put him out in the cold, and he got pneumonia and died. Oh my
That
dog!
little girl.
Oh my, yeah, she
Okay.
went to school.
Back up a minute. You worked at a radio station
Yeah.
doing.
Programming. Taught.
You told us that part.
Oh, well, there's a whole lot I didn't think I could do. Anyway, I did that because we thought we were going to have a baby, and we weren't. But we quit, so we wouldn't have to quit school in the middle of school to have a baby. And so I was working in the radio station.
Huh.
What about Grandma's horse or something?
Oh, tell us about the horse.
The
Well,
what?
let me tell you about the dog first, the one
Okay.
that came across the street, fat as she could be.
Yeah.
So I took her home, and she had puppy. But anyway, we named her Bethlehem and called her Beth.
I knew you had Beth, but I didn't know why.
Named her Beth because it was at Christmas.
Yeah.
She had puppies.
What'd you name them?
What'd you do with the
Really
puppies?
We gave them away.
What'd you name them?
We didn't name them. So whoever took them named them.
Balthazar.
Yeah. There were 4 of them.
Melchior.
There were 4 of us.
We took 8.
And
So
then
when he
you
was
had-
growing up, he had a pony.
And the pony's name.
What was his name?
Bill.
Bill.
He was a wild pony. He came in with a load of wild horses. And nobody could ride him but me and the boy next door.
Without a saddle.
Then he could not put a saddle on him. You had to ride him bareback. And if he threw you off, that was just too bad. And one day he threw me off in the back alley, and I caught him by the tail, and we went running right up through the back alley. He ran through the me on to the tail. Another time I was riding him, and there was a pond over about 2 miles from where we lived, and it was a hot day. So he just waited right out in the middle of the pond and laid down with me on his back, and wallowed around. I was still on his back, and he got up and went, took off.
Did you know him when this was going on?
No,
No. As he said, I was living on the other side. He was living on the other side.
She
of the
lived on the side of the tracks where they had money.
Well, they tore down the house where I lived all my life, till I was 12 years old, I guess, 12 or 13. I went to McKeever School until I was in 5th grade. And it filled up, they had no more room. So the 6th grade was moved to the high school basement. And that's where I went to the 6th grade, was in the high school basement. We didn't change classes or anything. But I went there from 6th and 7th grade. Then when I went to 8th grade, we got to move upstairs.
Did you come out of the basement?
At J.W. Cannon High School, the only high school in Annapolis, where the team was known as the Little Wonders.
Well, guess that's it for now. Huh? Except you
Next week.
celebrated 51 years.
Well, that was in 1999. We had our 50th anniversary. And instead of having June the 11th, 1999, and instead of having some kind of a thing,
Reception.
we decided we'd take the family somewhere. But we started too late trying to get accommodations. So we decided to wait until till we were
2000.
June 2000, when we were married 51 years. Then we took the whole family over to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and had fun. Was that our second trip to the... Was, because one time we came from North Carolina.
That was our, yeah, it was all of us together.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
That's it.
it.
Not much happened.
This is my mom and dad.
Oh. Yeah, gold nose. And today is, did you say what date this is?